Things went wrong in the Christian world on a calm September morning in 2024. Joyce Meyer was kicked out of a fancy hotel in St. Louis while handcuffed. She used to be looked up to as a sign of faith, honesty, and preaching power. Not only did the scene shock Christians, but it also marked the end of decades of power and glory in the Christian community. But what did really happen? Why did a woman who prayed every morning to God to keep her mouth shut get caught up in a huge money scandal? With thorough spending records, witness statements, and a shocking audio recording that can't be argued with, in today's movie, we find out the shocking truth about power, money, and other things that have never been told before. All eyes are now on Joyce Meyer, who was once praised as a live example of faith. She is in court today facing the worst sentence of her life. Crimes that have been kept secret for years are now being found out. The most important question now is whether she can fix things and save her image. Or will this be the sad end of a religious kingdom that millions of people used to worship? Joyce Meyer, one of the most famous and powerful evangelists in the world, was arrested at a fancy hotel in St. Louis on a terrible morning in September 2024. The Christian world was shocked. People used to look up to this woman as an example of success, faith, and service to God. Now she's in handcuffs, which is a shocking sight that shows the end of a decades-long rule. Meyer was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. He had to start from scratch. Being poor and going through a difficult childhood helped him become one of the most important religious figures. Joyce Meyer turned Joyce Meyer Ministries into a worldwide business with her strong teaching style, captivating voice, and healing message. More than 150 countries heard her lectures, millions of copies of her books were sold, and tens of thousands of people came to her conferences. But there were signs of doubt behind the image of a spiritual leader who pushed for morals and honesty. In 2023, a bunch of shocking financial claims started to come out, which shocked even the most devoted fans and the media. The first reports from the investigations showed that Meyer and her group had broken the law very badly, including by not paying their taxes, donations being stolen, and charity funds being misused. It is said that many of the gifts were not used for humanitarian projects as promised, but instead went to expensive personal spending. Documents from the investigation also show that Meyer bought a mansion in Beverly Hills worth a lot of money, as well as expensive cars and a private jet worth more than $10 million. The public was never given a clear picture of these costs. People gave money because they thought it would be used to help poor people and spread the word of God. Sarah Johnson, who used to be the CFO of Joyce Meyer Ministries, was a key figure in bringing the truth to light in this shocking incident. Johnson was in charge of the organization's finances during her time there, and she was the first person to notice a number of major problems with how donations were being handled. Johnson said that many big financial deals were not properly recorded in the books of accounts. Even worse, huge amounts of money were sent straight to Joyce Meyer's personal account. Johnson tried to warn internal staff about these problems many times, but she was blocked, ignored, and finally fired from her job. Johnson didn't give up and quietly gathered proof for months. Early in 2023, she made an official complaint to the police. This was a brave move that led to a huge investigation that lasted a year. As the probe went on, documents came to light that showed Meyer and her friends had set up a complex web of transactions to hide illegal activities like tax evasion, donor fraud, and money laundering. Early in 2024, the situation reached a peak when police searched the Missouri offices of Joyce Meyer Ministries. A huge number of financial papers, emails, and electronic devices were taken away. Many of them had clear evidence in them. Most notably, a tape that was leaked is said to have shown Joyce Meyer telling her staff to be creative with how they spend donations so that they wouldn't get in trouble with the tax authorities. It all came to a head when Joyce Meyer was arrested at the St. Louis Marriott Hotel in September. People around the world quickly saw the picture of her being led away in handcuffs as a sign of the fall of a once respected power. Meyer was charged with tax evasion, financial theft, and getting in the way of the law. More charges of money laundering and tampering with proof were also brought. People were very angry about the incident. Meyer was not only a spiritual leader for many, but also a person who showed faith and honesty. They were shocked and hurt when it was said that she had used the trust of millions of followers for her own gain. Still, some people stood up for her, saying that Meyer was the target of an effort to hurt her reputation because she was a successful Christian woman. People who support Meyer think that people who don't agree with their faith often attack religious leaders. They think the accusations are part of a plot to make her look bad. A lot of people, though, think the proof is too strong to ignore. The papers that were taken away and the statements of important witnesses like Sarah Johnson have made people even less likely to trust Meyer. The scandal has not only made believers question their faith, but it has also brought up important issues of ethics, responsibility, and openness in modern religious groups. Before we can say for sure if Joyce Meyer is innocent or guilty, we need to look into her past financial records and all the information that leads to this huge scandal. The alleged financial wrongdoings against her weren't just mistakes in her books. They were planned and done over a long period of time with the clear intention of avoiding legal responsibility and taking advantage of her loyal following for personal gain. Meyer is said to have set up a web of financial transactions that were so hard to understand that it took the police more than a year to fully probe. To understand what the case is about, we need to look at three main parts: the financial claims, the role of the tipster, and Meyer's defense plan. Tax fraud is one of the worst things that can be said about Joyce Meyer. By setting up and running complex financial deals to hide how much money Joyce Meyer Ministries really makes. According to papers used in the investigation, Meyer and her friends set up a financial system on purpose to lower their tax obligations while hiding the huge amounts of money they made from missionary work and donations. Using tax loopholes to their advantage, the group misclassified costs, turning personal costs into running costs for the nonprofit. One specific example is the $5 million that was spent to buy a fancy house in Beverly Hills. Meyer did not list the villa as her personal property. Instead, it was registered in the name of the organization. This helped her dodge personal property taxes. Meyer is also said to have bought a more than $10 million Gulfstream IV jet with charity funds. He said it was for religious reasons, but mostly used it for personal travel. A bunch of expensive cars like a Rolls-Royce, Bentley, and Range Rover were also bought with a lot of money. As long as the foundation's books were correct, all of these assets were legal and not subject to taxes. The total value of these assets, according to financial experts, is more than $20 million. All of them were the result of clever fraud. One of the most sensitive and contentious parts of the case has always been the donations. People all over the world gave millions of dollars to Joyce Meyer Ministries because they were told the money would be used to help poor people build schools and hospitals and spread God's lessons. The organization said it got more than $50 million in gifts just in 2022. Most of them are from low and middle income people who trust and hope that the group is on it. However, studies have revealed a terrible truth. A big chunk of those donations were not used for the good reasons that were promised. Meyer and her family are said to have used the money to pay for their expensive lives instead. It was found that millions of dollars were spent on fancy holidays at five-star resorts in Dubai, the Maldives, and Bora Bora. One person who saw Meyer said that he once threw a birthday party at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel that got up to $250,000 in gifts. Meyer is also said to have bought expensive clothes from Chanel, Prada, and Louis Vuitton with foundation money. Former employees say that she regularly told the foundation to pay for her personal costs, which were then justified as being linked to work. Some of the money was even used to buy homes in expensive places like Florida and California, which Meyer and her family liked to visit. Investigators think that more than $20 million, or about 40% of the annual gifts, were used for personal things. Not only does this break the law, it also clearly betrays the trust of millions of people who gave their lives for their faith and hope. There are also claims that Meyer's group launders money and hides information on purpose, in addition to tax evasion and misusing donations. The study found a web of bank accounts and fake companies in many countries, including tax havens like the Cayman Islands and Switzerland, that were used to hide where the money came from. One common method was to send big donations through multiple accounts and then use the money to pay for personal things, or invest in assets that weren't reported. For instance, $2 million, 0 cents was moved from the group's account to a fake business in the Cayman Islands. This fake business then bought a house in Miami. Even worse, the group is accused of destroying financial records to stop the probe. Several former workers said they were told to get rid of emails and papers that had to do with private business. One witness even said Meyer ordered the destruction of hard drives that had information about illegal financial operations on them. Legal experts say that money laundering and destroying proof are not only against federal law, but they also make the case more serious. The case is no longer just a financial investigation. It's also a wake-up call about power abuse in nonprofits. The total value of the suspicious transactions is believed to be $50 million, 0 cents. She had been working there for more than 10 years and was known as one of the most trusted and experienced staff members. She was in charge of all financial operations and making sure that all donations were used in a way that was clear and in line with the organization's mission to help people and spread the message of faith. However, it was from this place of trust that Johnson started to notice some very serious problems. As she looked over the organization's financial transactions, she saw that large amounts of money had been moved from the account to Joyce Meyer's personal account without any paperwork, legal justification, or proof. At first, she just thought something was wrong, but things got serious when she saw that the money was being used to buy expensive things that had nothing to do with the group's religion or charitable work. Johnson said that during her 2019 audit, she found that more than $2 million, 0 cents, had been used to buy a fancy mansion in Beverly Hills that she didn't think could be used for mission. Furthermore, she learned that more than $10 million, 0 cents, from the organization's budget had been taken from a fund called the Ally Fund to buy a private jet and cover the costs of maintaining it. Johnson bravely asked for more papers to explain and defend these outlandish spendings, but the answer she got was not cooperation, but prohibition. They told her to stop looking into things, stop asking questions, and carry on. But Johnson's quickly the target of a fierce response because of his brave choice. When she started to question how open her finances were, Joyce Meyer's close friends and family reacted badly. Right away, Johnson was fired because he didn't fit in with the company culture, which is another way of saying that he was turned down because he tried to question authority. It kept going. Soon after she was fired, Johnson was the target of a coordinated campaign of lies spread by people who used to work with her. It didn't take long for Joyce Meyer and her team to use the media to hurt Johnson's reputation. They said she was an angry worker who did it because she was mad about losing her job. Some loyal supporters of Meyer's even spread rumors that Johnson had stolen money from the company while she was in charge. These clearly an attempt to hurt her image before the truth came out. Besides that, she kept getting calls and texts from unknown people making serious threats against her and her family's safety. Many news sources said that Joyce Meyer's devoted followers, who wouldn't believe any of the accusations, took part in the abuse and put pressure on Johnson and her family to leave their home. After that, she lived in fear and doubt for many months, both about her money and about her own safety. But Sarah Johnson did not give up on the road of justice she had chosen, even though it was hard. Johnson was brave and determined when she gave the police all the proof she had gathered. This started a large-scale investigation that went on for more than a year. Her unwavering actions not only helped get the truth out, but they also became a strong example for other witnesses who were afraid to speak out. Sarah Johnson, who used to be a quiet financial director, has become a symbol of honesty and the guts to stand up to wrongdoing. Despite being pushed by a well-organized power structure after Joyce Meyer made an official complaint, Sarah Johnson is not the only one who has come forward to say what she did was wrong. A lot of people who used to work for Joyce Meyer Ministries have come forward to share their stories and experiences, which not only back up the claims but also give a better picture of how the organization has run over the years. One of them, a former worker in the accounting department, confirmed that the company regularly did strange financial deals without the right supervision. This person said in court that they were told to change the type of luxury expenses from brand name purchases to first-class flights as business expenses for the company. These costs had nothing to do with the organization's religious or charitable goals, but they were allowed by financial trick. Another witness who worked in the public relations department of Joyce Meyer Ministries said that Meyer told her team to do whatever it took to protect the organization's image, even if that meant hiding wrongdoing. Specifically, some witnesses said that the group not only misused donations, but also destroyed records on purpose to make the probe harder. At the trial, one witness said Meyer told people to destroy hard drives with private financial data right before the police raided the group's main office. These accounts not only show how bad the wrongdoing was in Joyce Meyer's ministries, but they also show a system of abuse, where every wrongdoing was hidden by power and manipulation. The brave acts of Sarah Johnson and other witnesses, on the other hand, made it possible for the police to investigate and bring the case to light. Sarah Johnson played a big part in this case, and not just because she spoke out first to protect the truth, but also because she gave up a lot for it. Johnson's story is both an example of bravery and a strong reminder of how important it is for faith groups to be open and accountable. But the question is whether Johnson's bravery and the evidence of other witnesses will be enough to hold Joyce Meyer legally responsible. The more important question is whether this case will really change how faith groups work in the future. Because Joyce Meyer is facing serious charges, she and her lawyers, led by lawyer Marcus Aon, have come up with what they call a complete and robust defense strategy. What the lawyers say is that Joyce Meyer has been unfairly attacked because of her religion and gender. They say Meyer's extravagant spending was actually a normal, necessary cost of running the ministry of the group. This plan is not only meant to disprove the accusations, but also to make her critics look less trustworthy. But there are problems and contradictions within this plan, which is why the public and legal experts aren't sure how well it will work. One of the main points of Meyer's case is that she was unfairly targeted because she is a well-known Christian woman with a lot of power in the religious community around the world. Even though the defense is still working on its plan, it is clear that this case is not only a big law test, but also a test of how fair and open religious groups are. It will be remembered as a time when people stood up to wrongdoing and protected the truth, even when strong groups put a lot of pressure on them to do so. The lawyer for Joyce Meyer, Marcus Aon, has said many times that the charges against her are not only formal, but also personal and religious. It is Aon's opinion that Meyer is the victim of jealousy and bias, because she is one of the few women who has done very well in the mostly male field of evangelicalism. He says that the government picked on her on purpose to send a strong message to the Christian community by using Meyer as an example of a well-known person who did bad things. On top of that, Aon says that many other religious leaders, mostly men, have done similar things but have not been punished as heavily as Meyer. He says that the fight was unfair and was meant to hurt her image and make her less powerful in the religious community. At a public event, Aon said that Joyce Meyer was not only a missionary, but also a religious icon and an example to many people around the world. He said that going after her was not only wrong, but also an insult to all Christians around the world. But Aon's case has been strongly criticized by both the public and legal experts. They say that calling the financial investigation an attack on religion or gender is just a way to distract from the real accusations. Aon has tried to make Meyer look like a victim, but real proof of her financial wrongdoing has made this case less than convincing. Meyer's main defense plan has been to explain why she and her group have spent so much money. Aon said that the money used to buy expensive homes, cars, and private jets was actually part of the normal costs of running a big business like Joyce Meyer Ministries. He said Meyer's ministry reaches millions of Christians around the world, and that planning trip events and keeping up a good public image are important parts of that work. Aon said Meyer needed to have his own private jet in order to go to foreign conferences, seminars, and events related to his ministry. He said that having one wasn't just a nice to have. Aon said that the high-end properties were used to host religious events or to give Meyer a place to stay while on work trips. He also said that it is normal and legal for big nonprofits to record these assets under the organization's name instead of Meyer's personal account. Meyer's lawyers also said that she had to spend money on things like designer clothes, fancy vacations, and expensive parties to keep up her work life and public image. Aon said that religious leaders like Meyer are not only carriers of God's word but also signs of hope and success, and that keeping up a good public image is not only their duty, but also an important part of their job. But this argument has made people very angry, especially since these expensive costs can't be explained when compared to the donation's original goal of helping the poor and serving the community. People think it's a big breach of trust to use given money for personal luxuries. Joyce Meyer and her lawyers have made a lot of arguments to defend what she did, but the defense plan isn't very convincing because it's not consistent.